So you guys able to see my screen?
Yes.
So let's start this session. So as I said, today we will only be discussing about the DBT, how DBT is emerged. So what is the structure of traditional data teams and what is the structure of this new DBT, and what is the new role that has formed because of the DBT, okay? And how can we embed this DBT in our regular extract, load, and transformation activities, okay? So these are the different things we are going to see in this session. Okay. Is it clear? Fine. So let me just start with some, I'll just start the topic with the traditional data teams, like how the traditional data teams is structured. Okay. So do you guys want me to start with some other things? So anybody has any topic in the mind before going into the DBT?
No.
Oh, fine. Okay. So I'll just start with the traditional data teams structure. Okay. So usually any data teams, any team who does deal with the data and who does deal with the reports does have two roles especially. So one is data engineer and another one is data analyst. Okay. So usually data engineers are responsible for building the infrastructure that on which the data is hosted. Usually databases, whatever the ETL process and the databases and the whatever the data is sitting inside the databases are managed by ETL tools. So they are all data engineers are also responsible for managing the ETL process, which will bring the data into our warehouses. Okay. So data engineers has to make sure that where the staging data should sit, where the transform data should sit, and they have to create some after cleaning up of all the data, whatever the raw data they are receiving. So they have to make sure they have another layer where the final or the process data will sit, right? So that is the typical, your regular role of a data engineer. He just deals with the data. He just deals with the flow of the data, from where he has to pick up the data, from where he has to, and where he has to store the data, and what kind of transformations he has to apply on the data. Okay. And what kind of tools he has to use in between, like whatever the ETL tools or any management tools he has to use. So all those things will be dealt by the data engineers. Okay. So for a data engineer, the typical skill set would be, so at least he should have known the basic knowledge would be on SQL. He should have known SQL, structured query language. Just a minute. Okay, sorry. Yeah, so the typical data set, skill set required for a data engineer is SQL. That is an compulsory language. At least he should know the basics of SQL, not basics, at least some concepts of SQL, and he should know any programming language, and at least he should have known one ETL tool. ETL tools are just third-party tools which are used to just extract the data from the source and then transform it in between whatever the cleanups you have to do. So we'll be doing it in the transformation layer. And then whatever the final data is that we will be pushing into the data warehouses. Okay. So that is the typical role of any data engineer. Okay. Okay. And coming to data analysts, so data analysts are, they mostly work with the hierarchy or the stakeholders of the final users of the data. Okay. So data analysts will be building some reports or dashboards using some visualization tools or using some Excel reports, right? So they will be whatever the final data that data engineers have produced or created. So the data analysts will be connecting to that data, and then on top of that data, they will be creating the reports required for your stakeholders. Okay. So they will, most of the times data analysts will have more understanding of the business logic. What your superiors are looking for, what kind of reports superiors are looking for. They might be knowing all the kind of the business logic. Okay. So because they will be directly dealing with the stakeholders of the final users. So the typical skill set required for data analysts, the basic SQL, because they have to connect to our data warehouses and pull the data. So at least the basic SQL is required, and any one of the visualization tool, and they have to, they should have some great experience working on the Excel reports also. Okay. So that is, a thing with data engineers and data analysts. So both of them including will form a data team. Okay. Anybody has any doubts here?
No.
Sir, one question here.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually like in the market currently, Snowflake is connected to DBT mainly, right?
Yes.
So in the same lines, do we have any reporting tool which is connected to this, means in the projects?
Yeah. Under DBT, you mean to say? Any
Yes.
visualization tool which connects to DBT? That's
Yes.
what you're asking?
Yes.
See, DBT is just a transformation tool. Okay. So it doesn't store any data for you. So whatever the data you're going to store or you're going to transform, so that all the data will be sitting on Snowflake, which is the storage layer for us. Okay. So that's why. So any visualization tool cannot be connected to DBT because DBT doesn't store any data. So whatever the reports you have to create, you have to connect to Snowflake for the data. Or any data warehouse, not just Snowflake, any data warehouse, whichever you're using, you have to connect to that data warehouse.
Okay. So from Snowflake, like usually, like which are the reporting tools connected?
Yeah, Snowflake, the popular ones are you can connect to Tableau, you can connect to Power BI. Those are some popular visualization tools.
Yeah, okay, got it.
Yeah.
Sir, one question, sir. DBT is like ETL tool or some other?
Sorry?
Sir, DBT is ETL tool, sir.
DBT is ETL tool.
Yeah, it is ETL tool or not?
So that's what. It is not exactly the ETL tool. It is different from the ETL tool. So that is what we are going to discuss next. Okay? Yeah. So it just changed the format of ETL tool. Okay. So we will discuss how that has happened. Okay. So we are talking about the data engineers and data analysts and data teams. Okay. If you see clearly, so there would be a gap between the data engineer and data analyst. Why? Because data engineer would be responsible for the data here. So whatever the data he's getting and however the data he's transforming, whatever the logics required to transform the data, everything would be written by the data engineer. Okay. But data analyst, so he will be mostly working on the reports, right? So he will be knowing the business logics because he will be directly working with the stakeholders. So there is some kind of clear gap between them. So only data analyst can communicate to data engineer what kind of data he wants and what kind of logics he should apply, right? But technically, data engineer should write the code, how the logic has to be implemented, right? So just to narrow down that gap, so we can DBT works very efficiently. So to be able to narrow down that gap, because every time data engineers has some doubts or any clarifications requiring on the business logics, if the data analyst is not available, so he doesn't have any work to do. So he has to wait for the data analyst every time. So he has to get the inputs from the data analysts, right? Because data analyst is the one who knows about the business logics, right? So clearly we can see a gap with there. Okay. So to be able to overcome to be able to narrow down this gap. So in the market, so along with whenever the DBT has introduced, so we have got some new role, which we call as analyst engineers. Okay. Which we call as analytics engineer. Are you guys clear with that?
Yes.
Yeah. So now we will discuss, let's keep that analytics engineer position aside. Okay. Now we will discuss about how the traditional ETL tool transformed from ETL to ELT. Okay. So if you see this, so this is, data, this we call it as a data maturity model. Okay. So here what happens is, so if you see the first step is the data collection here, right? So data collection as a data collection should be done by the data engineer part. Data engineer will be doing all that part for you. Okay. So what he'll be doing here, so he'll be collecting the data from different sources, whether it might be CSV files or Excel files or from APIs or from website data. So there will be, we will be having different kinds of sources, right? From all those sources, so we will be collecting the data first. So that is the first step of the whatever the data team is there. So that is the first step. So collecting the data. So from different sources, they have to collect different types of data. Okay. So once the data is in there, so data wrangling has to happen. Data wrangling isn't, so it is kind of a cleanup of the data. So whatever you get data you're getting from the source, it would be it would be a raw data. Okay. So there might be most of the data might be unwanted, okay, which you don't require. So and most of the things there might be some the formats are not correct, or else some date format issues might be there. Okay. So all those issues might be there. Some automatic issues will be there. So we would be doing all the cleanup and setting up of the data. So this happens in the staging area. Okay. So once the raw data is pulled from the sources, so that would be sitting in one place. So to be able to do all the cleanup, so we will be loading that raw data into the staging area, and we will be doing all those cleanups. Okay. From those, whatever the data is cleansed, whatever is the final data we have prepared, and whatever is the transform data we have prepared in the next step, second step. So we will be pushing that data into the data warehouse, okay, which will be the third place. So that is the final place where the transformed data sits, okay, in our warehouses, in our databases, okay. So that would be the third step. So on top of that, data warehouses, data analysts will be connecting to the data warehouse, and they will be creating some kind of reports for the stakeholders. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So we will be dealing only till the third step. So, and we will not be dealing with the visualizations and artificial intelligence or BML ops or operational analytics. We won't be dealing with all those things. Okay. So we are concerned only about the transformation and pushing the data into our final data warehouse. Okay.
Sorry, sir. Hello.
Hello.
Sir, can you allow the students to join the meeting? Still, few students are waiting to join for the meeting. Yeah, thank you, sir.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, most of them, all of them are. Yeah. Okay, fine. So here we will be only dealing with the up to the loading the data into loading the transform data into the final data warehouse. Okay. So if you see here, this is how the traditional ETL tool works. Okay. So first, so we will be having different sources like I said, it might be some files, it might be some APIs data, or it might be some segment data, or it might be some website data. Okay. So from different sources, we will be first extracting the data. Okay. So using a third party tool, usually the ETL tools are any third party tools, just like I can say, materials or not materials, SSIS and Informatica Power Center. Okay. So those are all the third party ETL tools. So what they will be doing is, first of all, they will be pulling the data extracting the data into their servers from the sources. Okay. So whatever you see on the extreme left hand side, so those are all the sources. From sources, they will be extracting all the data, all the raw data into their servers. Okay. So once the data is extracted from the sources, so they will be doing all the transformation. So data engineers will be applying different kinds of logics on top of the raw data to clean the data, or so whatever the duplicate data that we have, we will be just removing that, whatever the format issues we have. So we will be cleaning up and we will be transforming the data according to our requirement. Okay. So that happens in the transform layer here. Okay. And the next part is, once the data is transformed, once the data is ready from the ETL tools, so the data will be pushed to our data warehouses. Okay. So that will be our final data. Whatever the data is available in the data warehouse, so that will be our final data. Is it clear about the ETL, how the ETL works?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if you see here, so why I'm calling it as a traditionalism. So these are coming from, from long back, we have been using the same kinds of processes. Because, so if you see in the past, okay, so the cost of the storage and the cost of the computation is very high, right? So if you see back in the 2000s or 2010s, so whatever the cost of the storage, there were no much of the cloud systems back then in 2000s. Okay, so people were using only on-premise things. Okay, on-premise storing systems. So which is very costly for them. Okay, so because every time we require more data or more storage, we would have to pay, we have to put some more hard disks, we have to put some storage layers, and every time the data load increases, I mean the volume of data increases, we have to increase the compute capacity as well. I mean, whatever the transformation happens here, so that happens on the compute layer. Okay, so the computation capacity is needed in order to transform the data. Okay, so that also would be very costly in the earlier days, right? So that's why whatever the transform data is only loaded into the warehouses, right? So if you see, raw data will be sitting here. So once the data is transformed and loaded into the final data warehouse, so whatever the raw data is available here, so that would be truncated. Okay, that would be removed from the staging layers and the beginning databases, right? So only the transform data would be loaded into the data warehouses. Let's say if we are getting some, 1 million records daily. So after all the transformations and after all the cleanups we do, so that the data might come up to 500 to 600,000 records. Okay, so that would be very cost effective for us, because the number of records which we are loading into the data warehouse is very less. Okay, so that would occupy very less storage. And on top of that, we have to do some reporting as well. For the reporting tools also, to be able to connect to those data warehouses while pulling the data from those data warehouses. So they would have to access very less data. That means very less computation power is required. You're getting my points? Anybody has any doubts here? No? Are we good?
No, sir.
Sir, please allow the students.
Yes.
Again, they are waiting.
Yeah, I have allowed them.
So when it was started, sir?
Sorry?
When it was started?
Half an hour back.
It was almost, we started at 8 o'clock.
Okay, I was trying to join, but it was loading actually.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah, maybe
hi,
you'll get the recording for this. Maybe.
hi, Pierre. I have few questions. Like
Yes.
you are mentioning, it will be we can handle millions of data.
Mhm.
So you are mentioning as a staging area concept, right?
Yes.
So how? I mean, this DBT has those functionalities where we can design the staging area before moving into the actual data warehouse.
Yes, we have the concepts of staging, but it's not like the ETL tools. We exactly don't have the staging things here. We have different things that we will be using DBT. They will act as a staging tables for us. Okay.
Okay, so like it is not
See,
actually capturing or storing the data, right?
yeah, it is not actually storing the data.
Okay, so
But in these ETL tools, in the usual ETL tools, what happens is first the data will be pulled into their servers, and then on top of the data, so the transformation will happen. Okay.
okay, but in Snowflake, now you have these capabilities of ETL and ELT, right?
Yes.
So what is the need of DBT then?
Yeah, that's what we will discuss that. So how cost effectivities and how compute effectivities when compared to the other ETL tools.
So my
We'll
interest
talk about
level.
that.
See, actually, we are giving interviews with this Snowflake job profiles. Okay. So, I mean, from my side, we attended almost 4 companies. Almost everyone were expecting either Informatica, Data Stage, or SSIS.
Okay.
So, I don't know like how DBT will be advantage for us.
So DBT is, it's a cloud-based tool, I can see. Okay. So it is not as an on-premise tool, first of all. Okay. So whatever the things that whatever the companies, so you're talking about who are still using Informatica or SSIS, okay. So they might move to these cloud-based tools in the near future. So we are not talking about the traditional ETL tools here. Okay. So let's say all your companies are now using Snowflake, but before using Snowflake, they were using the traditional systems because on-premise SQL or SQL servers, Teradata systems, or some Oracle servers, right? So they have moved their storage layer to cloud, right? Now they have moved only their storage layer to cloud, but they haven't moved their transformation, which requires more computation power. They haven't moved that to the cloud yet, right? So they are still using the on-premise tools. But in near future, so there are more higher chances that every company will move to the cloud-based tools to perform their transformations. So which will be more cost-effective for them compared to the regular ETL tools, and which will be more time efficient as well.
Okay, so here one question I have.
Yes.
Since you are mentioning more companies will move into the cloud area,
Yes.
what if I say if the companies are having their cloud applications rather than the on-premise applications, okay? So definitely they have to configure either in Azure or AWS or Google Cloud, right?
Yes. Yes.
So I'm looking here is since in Snowflake we can for example we can connect to this AWS S3 bucket, okay, where people can load the place or data there in that location. Via Snowflake we can capture or we can consume that area. Again we can do the validations or whatever.
Yes,
So
you can do.
if such situation arises, then will be the DBT tool really need?
Yes, absolutely. There is a absolute need of DBT here in whatever the situation you have explained. So let me explain. So you're saying your data is sitting in S3 and you're accessing it via Snowflake, right?
Correct.
So to be able to transform the data, you have to write some transformation logics inside the Snowflake itself.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Which requires computational power.
Okay.
You agree? Yes, right?
Okay.
So whatever the computational power Snowflake is giving you, so that would be more costlier. See, if you observe the Snowflake architecture, so the storage cost will be very less. Okay. But whatever the cost you are giving to the Snowflake, whatever the amount you are paying to Snowflake is mainly for the computational power, is mainly for your warehouse capacities. the clusters
Correct.
you're going to create, right? The
Correct.
small
Correct.
size, medium size, large size. So the
Right.
more amount you're going to pay is for the clusters, cluster capacity and computational capacity. Okay.
Okay.
So if you do the transformations in just in the Snowflake, directly in the Snowflake, so
Mhm.
the time consumed by those computational warehouses will be more, and the capacity that you require to transform that that millions of data, I mean the
Mm.
some GBs or TBs of data
Mm.
will be, you require higher computational what cluster. You might need Excel, or you might need double Excel kind of thing. Okay, you might need
Okay.
more power, right? So
Okay.
for that you have to pay more.
Okay. Okay.
You have to pay more. So when
Right.
when compared to the what you are paying for DBT, so when you do the same thing in Snowflake, you have to you require to pay more. So just to avoid that, we can use this cloud-based tool. So
Got it.
you can save more money here. So
Okay.
finally, what companies will be looking for? They will be looking for time efficient, cost efficient, right?
Correct. Correct.
And the performance should be higher.
Yeah.
So it is
Right.
not like everything, the storage should be in the one place, all the computation should be in one place. So they can opt for different tools, so which makes their life easier.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
in that case, so opting for DBT would be a great advantage for any data team or for any company.
Right. Makes sense. Right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Clear? Yep. Awesome.
Same context, what about Redshift? If you use Redshift instead of Snowflake?
The same concept again. So Redshift is also, it's a kind of storage layer for them, right? So further also, for there also, you'd have to pay for the compute power. It's not like just you take the storage power and if you don't pay, if you pay very less for the computation power, it doesn't work very effectively, right?
Okay.
So if you pay more, you will get great compute power. That is there. That is always there. If you pay more, you will get more computational power. But the thing is, you have to save money here at the end of the day.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, got it.
So that's the main thing the companies will look for. It doesn't matter if you are using in between, if you are using 2 tools or 3 tools, that doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it should be time efficient and cost efficient.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yes. Any other doubts here? Okay, I'll just move on. So, okay, so we were talking about the on-premise things then. So how costly they were, how how time eating they were, right, to transform the data, because whatever the capacities we set on the computational, I mean on the compute layers, so that will be fixed. So if we have to do some, if we get more data, if we keep, I mean day by day the data volume will keep on increasing, right? So to be able to handle that that much volume of the data, we would require more computational power also, and we would require more storage also. But to be able to scale up on the traditional things, so that's a very tedious process, right? So we'll have to do some, some R&D. We have to do some R&D. We have to assign teams for that, and so some hardware things has to happen. So it might take months to be able to scale up the storage power or the computational power in the on-premise systems. Okay, but when compared to the cloud systems, let's say our storage layer, which is Snowflake, or you can say any cloud storage layer. So to be able to scale up the storage capacity is within few clicks we can do that, and that is cost effective also when compared to the on-premise storage. The storage on the cloud is very cheaper, right? So with the same, in the same cost of what we are using for the on-premise systems, we can store more amount of data in the same cost. I can say, even the double, triple of data we can store in the same cost when compared to the on-premise systems. Same in the case of compute also. So to be able to scale up the compute power, so to be able to scale up also, that would require some cost. To be able to maintain that compute power also, it would cost us more. But with the cloud services, so the compute power has increased, I can say, and the computational cost also decreased very much. Okay, so because of this decrease in the cost, so these new cloud-based tools has come up, like DBT or any Snowflake or any S3. Okay, because of the low computational costs and low storage costs, so we are opting for cloud for everything. Let it be for storage or let it be for computational power. Okay, so now comes the part of ELT, not ETL. So with the emergence of these cloud-based tools in the market, so we have got a new concept called ELT here. So to ditch the traditional ETL process, on the cloud-based services, we will be using ELT process. Okay. So here what we will be doing is, so we will just be directly dumping all our raw data directly into our warehouses without transforming. Okay. Is it clear? So earlier in the ETL tools, what we are doing before loading the data into our final warehouse, we were doing the transformation layer. But in the ELT, so what we are doing is, we will just extract the data from source and we will be directly pushing the data into our final data warehouse. Okay. Is it clear? Using our DBT, let's say we are talking about DBT, so I'll take the example of DBT itself. Now, using DBT, what we will do is, we will just directly connect to the database or data warehouse and do the transformations there itself, so that we don't have to pull the data into others, pull or push the data into other servers. Okay. Any doubts here? The concept of ETL and ELT.
Can you please repeat, sir?
What is the advantage then? So finally we are transforming, right? So
yes, final. So without transformations, we cannot give the data to any analyst or any.
That is correct.
Okay?
But instead
the transformation should happen. So what is happening is, so I said, like I said, so the on-premise ETL tools will have to pull the data into their servers. Okay, so that is one thing. After pulling, they have to use some compute capacity of your systems, okay, or of your servers. And then after the transformation, they have to push the data into the data warehouses. Okay. So whatever the transformation logic you're writing, you have to write in the transformation data. But in the ELT concept, so we are directly pushing the data into our data warehouses. Now that all our data is already in our data warehouse. Let it be raw data only. Okay. But here, in the raw data itself, I mean, in the data warehouses itself, so we will be using DBT, we will be connecting the data warehouse and transforming there. So transforming as in, here we will not be using any, like just like SSIS or Informatica, we will not be using different tools for different purposes. Okay. I mean, for filtering of the data, or to be able to derive a new column, to be able to filter any data. So we will be having different tasks, right, in the traditional ETL tools. But here in the cloud-based transformation layers, so we will just be writing some select statements. Okay. Only select statements we are using here. So using the select statements, we will be creating something called models here. So models as in, like, I can compare these models to their intermediate tables in the traditional ETL tools. Okay. In the traditional ETL tools, first the raw data for the first layer transformation happens, and then we move the data into some, some intermediate table. And on top of that intermediate table, we will be applying some more logics. And again, we will be pushing it to some other intermediate tables. Okay. And from there, we will apply more logics and we will transform the data. And from there, we will be loading into the final data warehouse. But here we are now, first of all, we are not pulling the data into the DBT servers here. Okay. We are just directly connecting to the data warehouse. Okay. And here we are not creating any intermediate tables here. So the concept of creating the intermediate tables is eradicated here. So we are writing some simple select statements, which will be used as a transformation logics. Okay. Which work as an intermediate tables for us. The models which we are going to create using those select statements will be working as a intermediate tables for us. Okay. And if you observe one more thing, so to be able to load the data into the intermediate tables, so first of all, we have to create them. So we have to work on the DDL part there. So for every, the DDL part would be different here, different. So you have to work on the DDL part as well in the traditional ETL tools. In the cloud-based ETL tool like DBT, you don't have to work on the DDL part. So the DDL would be automatically created for you. So whenever you write a select statement for any model, so the DDL will be automatically created for you, so that you don't have to put your effort or spend your time on creating the intermediate DDLs. Okay.
Hello.
Yes.
Sir, are you showing any slide for DBT? Because I can see only the ETL slide right now.
No, I think I'm not showing any DBT here. Just a minute.
You're not showing, just he is at ELT only.
Yeah, I was just expanding this part. Okay. So if you see here, so this is the final data lineage that we are going to create using DBT. You can see, so whatever the things that are on the left-hand side, those are all the sources. In between, whatever we have, whatever you see in the blue things, so those are all called models. So in our ETL tools, they are called in between intermediate tables or intermediate tasks. Okay. So instead of creating those intermediate tables and doing the pulling and pushing to those intermediate tables, so we will be just writing the select statements and creating the models here. So that every time, so we apply some logic on any raw data. So we have to push that into one intermediate table, right? And from on top of that on top of that intermediate table, we have to apply logic, and we again have to push the data into the next intermediate table. So those things are not we are not doing all those things here. So we are just writing, creating the models using the SQL statements, and just they will be acting as a intermediate tables for us. Okay, so that the process is faster here. Okay, so multiple pushing and pulling of data is not happening here. Okay.
So, sir, in
So
this
that's
case,
why
how the key columns are taken care? Means the DDL will take care of even the key columns, primary and constraints, everything.
so if you're talking about the indexing concept, so whenever we are talking about the indexing concept, no, Snowflake doesn't much have that in the indexing type of concept. They have different type of concept to be able to fetch the data faster. Okay, so we will be using those concepts here instead of using the just like the primary key concept. We have the primary key concept, but we will be using the different concepts which are leveraged by Snowflake here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sir, can we apply business rules in DBT too?
Yes, that's whatever the transformation logics we have to do, we have to write it in the DBT.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So that's what we have someone worked on any ETL tools here, so they might understand. So let's say just create you English here. So let's say this is our raw data here. Okay. So raw data should be pulled into the SSIS tool first. Okay. From the raw data, so we will have to applying some business logic, some basic duplication things. So we have to push the data again into some intermediate table. Right. So here we are doing some pulling and pushing, and again on top of this we have to apply some other business logics, and we again have to use some intermediate tables, right? And if you are having more logics and more cleanups, you have to use more intermediate tables, and that means more pushing of data is happening from one table to another table, right?
Yeah.
So let's say if the data is small, so that would happen in some minutes. If the data is huge, it will take some hours. Okay. So first of all, it has to for transformation, it is taking time, and again to push the data into the next tables also it is taking time, right? But in the DBT, what's happening is, so we don't have the concept of pulling or pushing the data into next tables. Okay. So which is very time efficient and performance effective also. Okay. The performance of the transformation would be very higher because we are not doing any, the computation power is higher when compared to the traditional ETL tools. So that way the performance, the transformation time would be very less. And we are not pushing the data from one table to another table here, right? So that time is also saved when compared to the DBT tool. So here, like I said, we will be having models here. We will just be having models. Inside these models, we will just have a SQL statements. So these models just act like a view for us. Okay, just act like a view for us. I'm just taking the reference of view. It is not a view actually. Okay, I'm just taking the reference for the view. That's it. Okay.
So here means in the first step, you're doing some transformation and DDLs will get stored. And in the second step, you will do some more transformations. So it will take the transformations from the second step and not the first.
So in the second model, we will be referencing the first model. So whatever the data we are getting from the second model, so we will be referencing that data in the second model. So the way that works is you don't have to create any intermediate tables here.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
Sir, hi.
Yes.
So what concepts are we covering in DBT?
So we are covering the fundamental concepts. We are like creating the models, testing the models, deploying the models, jobs,
snapshots, seed.
The snapshots also we will be covering. So in the basic course, I didn't include the concept of Jinja here, but I may try based on the time, I might try to cover some. Okay, but according to the course content, so we are covering only the fundamentals of DBT.
Okay. And are we doing it locally, or are we connecting to any Azure and then try to set it up?
Yeah, we are connecting to Snowflake here. So we are connecting.
No, sir. We can connect it through EDF also, right?
Dynamically, you have different options. Right. You have different options.
But here we do it locally in our machines, set it up, and then we do the transformations, right?
Yes. So we will have some data. So in the next class we will try for the beginners. So I'll be going from the scratch actually. So we'll try to set up the Snowflake. We'll try to set up the DBT, and we'll see how to connect DBT and Snowflake. Okay, and we will see how the version control system is created. How can we integrate that version control system in the DBT?
Is open source or any we need to purchase? Hello.
So yes, tell me.
Yes.
So it's not like an open source. Okay. So to be able to use some premium things, you have to pay for that. So to be able to use more compute power kind of things, you have to pay.
For our practice also, we need to.
No. For your practice, you don't have to pay. So we will be using both the trial accounts, free accounts, okay, for the Snowflake as well as for the DBT.
Yeah, hello.
Yes.
May I know right now which industries are going for this DBT migration? Like only any manufacturing sector?
No, it's not like only one domain is moving to. So everyone who are using data, so everyone is moving to the cloud services, not exactly to the DBT. So first of all, they are moving the storage layers of there. Whatever the storage layer they are using, they are moving the first migration would happen with the storage layers. Then they will think of using the cloud transformation tools.
Okay.
Because without data, no industry would be there, right? So every data is key for every industry. So wherever data is there, so we can try to integrate these concepts. That depends on their, budget and their volume of data.
So you mentioned like this DBT is developed in Python platform. So based on that, it enables the engineers to develop any Python code in DBT or not required?
Not required actually. So we can just build the models based on the basic SQL itself. So if see in any model we are going to create, any transformation we are going to create, we are just using the simple select statements here. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So in DBT also, sorry, that is a different concept what I'm telling. In DBT also we have two concepts. One is DBT Cloud and DBT Core. Okay. So DBT Cloud is what you are seeing it on my screen. So we can just using the browser, you can connect to your DBT, you can log in, you can write your SQL statements and everything. So and one more thing is DBT Core. So which we can access via CLI, command line interface things. We can access it. Okay. For the using the command line interfaces, we have integrating Python with that. Okay. For the cloud things, we don't exactly need Python. For using the CLIs, we have to install some Python libraries. We have to install the CLIs of DBT. Okay. So there we will require some Python.
Okay.
Sir, one question.
Yes.
Since you explained that Snowflake has to pay for the compute resources, right, which is higher. So for that case, DBT is in scope. So
Yes.
how does DBT, at background, what happens at DBT? How is it managing the compute cost? Like for example, if I go to Azure Data Flows, it runs behind clusters, right? Or Databricks runs under clusters, which is more costlier. So now in the same case, how DBT manages the computing cost? What goes behind DBT so that it is more
So why
cheaper?
DBT is cheaper is it is not offering the E and L part of it. It is offering only the T part, which is the transformation layer.
Okay.
So that way, in all the ETL tools, all the three things are there. The extract has to happen and the load also has to happen. So here we are getting the two parts. We are mainly focusing on the transformation. Okay. So that way, the services that they are offering is limited to the transformation.
So this is again managed by Snowflake only, right? The transform. DBT is again still managed by DBT Snowflake only, right?
I cannot say that it is managed by DBT, but it is a partner of Snowflake.
Yeah.
I cannot exactly say it is managed by Snowflake, but it is partnered with Snowflake. So the connectivity would be very easy. Yes.
So Snowflake recommends DBT, right, for all its clients?
Not exactly. So it has different other tools also it is working with. It exactly doesn't recommend DBT.
Yeah, I see this DBT got stabilized in this Jan month only. So how quickly, as per your experience, how quickly clients are adhering to this DBT tool? It's pretty new in the market as per my...
I know. If you see, from past 4-5, I've seen companies from past 4-5 years, they have been using Snowflake just for the storage purposes. See the services which Snowflake is offering right now is, keep on increasing, right? So earlier it was just the storage purpose. The compute was not that good. Okay. There were some issues with the columnar storage. Snowflake has the concept of columnar storage as well, right? So adapting to that kind of columnar storage, using that kind of storage was, it was a bit difficult back then. Okay. So people are getting used. So they are, realizing that columnar storage would be more effective than the regular row level storage which we are using. Okay. So that would be performance wise, Snowflake is very effective right now. So with all the updates or whatever the versions they have brought up, so it is we can say it is now stabilized. So they are offering every kind of service, whatever you do for the analysis, even for the analysis purposes, you can do. In the Snow side things, you will get some kind of limited analysis. Whenever you query some data, you will get some quick analysis of the data of your data. So those kind of updates, with all those kinds of updates, they are offering. So people are, I mean, they are more interested to move to Snowflake than any other things. So at least for the storage, they are preferring Snowflake. For the computational purpose, since it is higher, costlier, they are opting for some other tools.
Sir, one question here. When we want to do some kind of reconciliation activity, suppose in your example in the slide, so second and third step. So if you want to see the data, means just a preview of the data in the second step after going to the third step, intermediate transformations.
Yeah, we have the in ETL, so in DBT, so whenever you build a model, okay, so you have an option of previewing the data. So what kind of data you are getting? So you have the option of previewing the data. Okay. So
just
there
a
you can
kind of view, right? Because physically you're not storing anything.
Yeah, no, we are not building anything here. We're not building anything. So if you just do a quick preview, you will get to see whatever the data you're getting out of your model. And here one more best thing is, so you have an option of testing your models. You can write your own use cases. Okay. So you can, let's say, if it is violating some consistency you have created, so whatever the condition you have given inside the logic, if your model or the data coming inside the model is violating that or not. So you can write, there are some generic tests are also there, which is by default comes with the DBT. There are some, we can write our user created tests as well. So whenever we run the things, so those tests will be performed on those models, and then so you will be intimated. So whether you are getting the correct data or not.
In terms of optimization of the computations, whatever, it's usually in the ETL tools, there will be any select statement internally it creates on its own optimization. So here, how it is working?
I didn't say internally, as in it will create in its own optimization.
Means suppose if you are connecting to a database with an SQL query, means it gets the best plan out of it and then runs it in the database.
Yes. So here, if you see, so since we are just writing the select statements here, it would be very straight problem. Most of the models, we can use multiple models. Instead of writing one single complex query here, okay, we can split that single complex query into multiple models. You getting my point? Hello.
Yes, sir.
So instead of writing one complex query, which requires more higher compute power, we can split that query into multiple statements, so that we can build multiple models here. Okay. So that way the efficiency will increase.
Got it, sir.
And we can use less compute power as well. Any doubts? Please.
Sir, is it only compatible for the Snowflake or any other also?
No. So there are different tools you can connect to, some Azure things also you can connect. You can connect to AWS things, or BigQuery, Dremio, Redshift.
No.
Yeah, then there are multiple options.
Can we work with mainframes, IBM mainframes?
I think we can work with IBM DB2.
Yeah, DB2, yeah, correct.
Yeah, we can work with that. So, but it is not a kind of direct connectivity with the DBT. In between, we have to use some kind of plugins, kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So through them, we can connect to DBT.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
So is it a replacement of Informatica, those kind of tools, sir?
Yeah, definitely. So whenever people are moving to cloud, it's kind of replacement only.
Replacement, right?
Yes.
Okay.
But this can with this we cannot do it on premise. This is a cloud based tool. We have to remember.
Your voice is low, sir. What is that?
So this is a cloud based tool.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Any more doubts?
So every time you're using a computational, so it means it is a calculation kind of thing.
Sorry.
Every time you're using computational, so is it like a calculation kind of thing?
Okay. What does computation means?
Right. Yeah. Because since I'm new to this one.
Okay. So what happens is, see, let's say you have some raw data. You have to do some, let's say you have to apply some business logic on top of it. Business logic as in, by combining two columns, you might have to create a new column kind of thing, or so you have to extract some data from each column. Okay. So there are some different transformations. We call them as transformations. Okay. So we are transforming the raw data, right, from one form to another form.
Right.
It might be extracting the data from one column, or combining two columns of data and making it one single entity kind of thing, or else deleting the duplicates kind of thing. So all these are, we call them as transformation of data. Okay. So to be able to do that, we need some computational power. Just like RAM in your laptop, you'll have that RAM, right? Processor.
Yes.
So whatever the things if you, let's say you playing a game, you would require some graphic card. So if your processor is not enough, you would require the graphic card power as well, right?
Right.
So that's what we call it as compute power. To be able to perform those transformations, we would require some compute power.
Compute power, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's what we call as computational capacity.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oops. For the background noise, please. If everyone is good, I assume. Okay. So maybe we'll discuss topics of data or some data lakes. If anybody is new to that, we will discuss about them in the next class, and we will start with the setting of our accounts. Okay.
So timings is same, sir. 8 o'clock.
Yes, 8 o'clock.
I was trying to connect, but it was not. It was loading since half an hour, so I joined little late.
Okay.
So just
no problem. So you will get your recording for this session.
Correct, but yeah, better to allow first whenever you start the session, so that
I've been trying. So just
because 5 members.
Maybe I'll just take out that option of people can directly join.
Yeah, because 5 people joining some later and 2 people joining some like that. It is happening.
We'll take care of that.
Okay, thank you.
If nobody has any questions, we will just wind up this session. Okay. So in the next session, we will start with the setting up accounts, connecting the accounts. We will talk about them. Okay. Okay. Thank you, guys.
AWS Glue is an ETL tool, right? Online?
Yes. Yeah. We will be able to connect to the Glue as well.
Okay.
We have an option to connect to Glue as well.
Okay. It's a complete ETL tool, right, on AWS?
Which ETL? AWS Glue. It's not exactly an ETL tool.
Okay.
It's not an ETL tool.
Okay.
Okay, sir, we can wind up.
Okay, fine. Thank you, guys. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.